Most players are leaving a massive amount of damage on the table because they're either building the weapon incorrectly or using the wrong rotation. In this guide, I'll show you the exact gear setup, attunements, inner ways, and the complete early game, mid game, and end game rotations that top strategic sword players are using right now. By the end of this video, you know exactly how to maximize your bleak detonations, maintain your 50% soul-shaking debuff, and squeeze every bit of damage out of the strategic sword. Let's get started. From an optimal build crafting standpoint, your goal as a strategic sword enjoyer is to get 12 max physical attack rolls while also getting to the affinity cap of 40%. The more momentum rolls you use to reach the affinity cap, the better. You want to have, as a bare minimum, 3 power rolls in your equipment. But the more power rolls you have, the better. You can check this chart for god roll gear. The free slots can be momentum, precision, critical, or affinity. For attunements, you want your weapons and accessories to have physical penetration, and your armor pieces go for bleeding damage boost. The inner ways that we will be using are Sword Horizon, Moral Chant, Wolfchaser's Art, and Insightful Strike. Before giving a breakdown of the skills and their uses, we have to talk about Sword Horizon and its most important perk, Criss Crossing Swords. After doing either martial, special, or charge attack, if you press the respective key again, Criss Crossing Swords will activate, doing a follow-up attack that will vary depending on the skill it was activating from. This follow-up attack is very important because we'll be using it to detonate our bleak stacks. More of that in a second. The strategic sword's martial art skill is called Inner Track Slash. You can use it once to do a short dash and apply a bleak stack to the target. You can also use a second cast in quick succession to perform 4 consecutive slashes on the target, applying 5 big stacks in the process. If the key is pressed again, Criss Crossing Sword will activate, detonating the stacks and doing high bleed damage. This is the core mechanic of this build, getting 5 bleed stacks onto an enemy and then detonating them to cause high burst damage. The special skill is Inner Balance Strike. This skill consumes a lot, and I mean a lot, of stamina. When you cast it, you will do a backflip away from the enemy and apply 4 stacks of bleed. If the target has 5 stacks of bleed, this skill will detonate those stacks. If you hit the key again, Criss Crossing Swords will activate, and when it does, you will launch through the target just after the backflip. We'll be spamming this ability in our rotations. You can speed up the recovery animation of this skill by using the parry key just after you've gone through the target. This will increase your DPS by a good margin. The charge heavy attack is called Second Track Slash. This skill consumes stamina and you will have iframes during the dashing animation. It will apply 5 stacks of bleed, and if Criss Crossing Swords is used with this ability, you will jump towards the target and do a single slash. Now, let's focus on the Heavenquaker Spear. Its heavy charge attack is called Drifting Thrust. Using this skill will consume stamina, and you will launch a flurry of hits directly in front of your character. You will have fortitude during this skill, and enemies hit by it will be inflicted by the Soul Shaken debuff, which is a 10% increased damage over time debuff by every hit received with a maximum of 50%.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Yes, a whopping 50% damage increased. If this skill is used when the debuff is already applied, it will reset its duration. You want to maintain this debuff as long as possible on your target. The martial arts skill is called Sober Sorrow. This skill will give you fortitude, and when you level up its inner way, Wolfchaser's Art, 60% damage reduction. Using this skill will give you a buff depending on the amount of combo hits you inflict while using the skill. The buffs are as follows: less than 5 hits, 10% extra HP damage. 5 or more hits, 15% extra HP damage. 10 or more hits, 20% extra HP damage. If Wolfchaser's Art is at tier 6 and the enemy is inflicted with Soul Shaken, it will apply another stack of it, refreshing its duration and applying a 5% damage debuff on top of it. Taking advantage of this effect by buffing your damage and making sure the enemy never loses the soul chicken debuff is the bread and butter of the strategic sword gameplay. Now let's move on to the special skill, Sweep All. This skill consumes stamina and will change its range and damage depending on the buff you achieved while using Sober Sorrow. Less than 5 hits, it'll do just moderate damage. If it's between 5 and 9 hits, the damage and range will be increased and it will reduce the defense of the target hit. With 10 or more hits, it will further increase the damage and range, reduce the defense of the target, and apply bleed. If Wolfchaser's art is at tier 4, this skill will gain 25% extra damage and restore HP equivalent to 20% of the damage dealt. It will also deal high bleed damage with a 12-second cooldown. Now that we know what the skills are for, let's talk about rotations. Starting with early game, when Wolfchaser's art is at tier 3 or below. Start by drinking Drunken Poet, then Flute. Remember to parry cancel when the sound starts. Then use Sword QQ followed by Spear Q. Charge your heavy attack and get 5 soul chicken stacks. Then cancel using Dragon Breath. Use Sword Special 3 times and parry just after you've gone through the target to skip the recovery animation. Now, start the rotation from the beginning, but this time only use 1 hit of the charged spear attack to reset the soul chicken debuff. Mid-game rotation, when Wolfchaser's art is tier 4 or tier 5. Start by drinking Drunken Poet, then Flute. Remember to parry cancel when the sound starts. Use Dragon Breath and cancel after the first hit. Cast Sword QQ. Charge the spear attack and get the 5 hit soul chicken debuff. Use Spear Q. Follow with Sword Special times 2, then Dragon Breath. Cancel after the second hit. Do 1 more Sword Special, followed by Sword QQ. Then 1 hit Spear Charge attack, followed by Spear Special. Parry after the first hit, then Spear Q. You will be repeating this rotation. Endgame rotation. Wolfchaser's art, tier 6, it's needed for this one. The first step will be the opener. Use Drunken Poet, then Flute, and parry as soon as the sound starts. Use your Spear Charge attack, but only 1 hit, followed by Dragon Breath. Then Sword QQ, followed by Spear Q. Use your Sword Special twice and channel a full Dragon Breath right after. Then follow by 2 more Sword Specials. Use your Spear Special and follow it with your Spear Q. Cast a single Sword Special followed by a full Sword Q, then a full Dragon Breath. You will follow this with your Sword Special times 2 and then Spear Special followed by Spear Q. You can repeat this rotation until you can no longer reliably attack the boss. In that case, start the rotation from the beginning. And that's everything you need to master the strategic sword in the current version of the game. If this guide helped you improve your damage, let me know in the comments what DPS you're hitting now. I'd also love to hear if you discovered any optimizations or rotations variations of your own. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more Where Wins Win content. And I'll be seeing you next time.